Hello everyone, so this book review is on The Impossible Fortress by Jason Rekulak, and I picked this up because it is a tale of girl meets boy in the 1980s, and being a child of the 1980s myself, I thought, ooh, have a bit of nostalgia, that'll do quite nicely. But it was a book I felt I was rooting for all the way through but didn't really deliver. And I actually found myself quizzing for a great section of time whether this was a YA book. Not that necessarily, some YA books are great, but it did not seem to be particularly engaging or didn't really work as a piece of adult fiction. So I found myself coming away rather deflated by The Impossible Fortress, which is a bit of a shame. Because obviously the 1980s, though I wasn't American, and this book is very much set in 1980s small town America, I thought would have a lot to offer for me. And in it we follow Billy. Billy is a young man, and Vanna White has just appeared on the cover of Playboy. It is 1987 and Billy and his mates are underage, but they're desperate to catch a copy of Playboy with Vanna on the cover. So they strike a plan where they're going to try and nick a copy of Playboy from the local store. The Impossible Fortress. How will they get hold? How will they worm their way in to get a hold of the sort of much beloved Playboy that they're all desperately craving to get their hands on? And of course, what happens is the daughter of the shopkeeper is a young girl called Mary, and Billy falls head over heels in love with Mary. And so he ends up clashed. Is he stuck with his mates who are still desperate to rob the store, or does his heart win over and does his affection for Mary means that he won't rob her dad's store? So yeah, cute story. And in fairness of the story, it has that whole kind of like boys and girls and how they sort of misread each other, and how girls are this great big fascination for young boys, and how this, the impossible fortress again. How do you get a young girl on a date? But there were some frustrations for me. Like I said, it isn't particularly engaging. It isn't sort of, it is nicely crafted, but there's nothing here that's really sort of new or fresh. And frustratingly, the 1980s references are a bit all over the place. There are there's a young girl who works in a young woman who works in a store, and she's in all the ripped tights and lace gloves, and so he sort of makes a Madonna reference, Jason makes a Madonna reference, but this is 1987 and Madonna hadn't dressed like that for a couple of years, and actually young women had moved on by 1987 as well. That look was very much abandoned. There are references to U2 being a one-hit wonder, but the Joshua Tree was their 5th studio album, and even sometimes the vernacular goes a bit awry, like right, so I've just said it, how we use the word like, how you say, like that was really bad. Like, and I really worked, but then like he said no. So how like has sort of hit our vernacular. So that's in here as well. But that is actually 1990s vernacular. It actually comes from Friends. Blame Chandler Bing for that. So I just got frustrated with that. What he does get right though, Jason, is the Commodore 64, because young Billy and young Mary bond over coding. They start to create computer programs together, and it's through the truthfulness of these computer programs that they begin to communicate with each other, and the walls of the impossible fortress start to come down. So there is stuff here that works, there is stuff here that is engaging, but wrapped as a whole, it didn't really work for me. So I wondered who the audience were, because yeah, I'm guessing Jason Rekulak has really gone for people like me, 1980s kids who want to think back on the Goonies and Back to the Future. But to be honest, I think you'd be better off watching the Goonies and Back to the Future than reading this. Sorry. And then what makes it difficult for me is I'm not even sure that female readers will enjoy this, because boys are bullies, right? And so there's a lot of bullying of Mary of being fat, but there's a lot of that. And I know that may be truthful, but as a female reader, that's quite hard to constantly page after page after page about Mary being fat. And it just became a bit much, and actually became very distancing. And in fact, in quite a few stages, I just was getting a bit annoyed. So who is this audience for? I don't know. If you want to bond over your Commodore 64 coding, then maybe. And Billy and Mary are great characters, and they're really well formed, but I just don't think Jason has given them a great book to really flourish in. It's engaging, it's cute, but The Impossible Fortress is good for a beach read, and then you'll probably put it aside.